and welcome to my review looking back at the Monaco Grand Prix. A pretty eventful Monaco Grand Prix. After the safety car, you could argue it was a bit of a procession, but even then, there was still that intrigue. There were plenty of close battles happening, and in the end, your top three of Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen. So they finished in top three on Sunday, and yeah, pretty eventful Monaco Grand Prix weekend. And all the talk was about whether Charles Leclerc could win his home race. And after Saturday, you would have said that he was in a fantastic position um, to be able to take the race win. But it's not the first time that this has happened. But Ferrari questioning their strategy. Did they make the right calls with Charles? For Carlos Sainz, you could argue that they did. But in a way, it was actually Carlos who led that decision. In the fact that he first time round he was only going to come in um, for sixth, and in the end, for Carlos anyway, that proved to be the right decision. But that double stack that Ferrari did, where Charles came in behind Carlos, cost him a chance of a race victory. Yes, he did finish the race, but when you finish, but particularly in Monaco, when you start the race on pole position and then you end up finishing fourth, of course you're going to be disappointed. And I think Charles and Ferrari, I think have got, well, for Ferrari anyway, they've got a lot of questions to answer. And Charles, I'm sure, will be um, frustrated right now. But I think the only if it's any crumb of comfort or any positives for Charles is the fact that he is driving well. Um, and you could argue the result in Monaco, and also the result in Spain was no fault of his own. No engine issue in Spain. There's nothing that Charles could have done about that. And then in terms of the strategy, um, indecision from the team led to Charles then not being able to um, take the race win or be in contention for the race win. So you have got to feel a bit for Charles. But that's Formula One. But having said that, though, it will even itself out, and Charles will definitely get plenty of other opportunities to win races this year. And the thing is, though, in the Drivers' Championship as well, he's not too far behind Max Verstappen either. So there's still a lot to play for. And whilst the last two races, including Monaco, haven't been great for Charles, as I say, there's still a very long way to go this season. And going to Azerbaijan, that actually could be a track that suits Ferrari. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, Charles, he'll definitely be fired up, and he'll definitely want to bounce back, and yeah, get back to winning ways in Azerbaijan. As for Carlos Sainz, really good weekend for the Spaniard. Obviously, there's a bit of frustration in the end for him in not being able to get that race win, but he is getting closer, and that race win will come this year. I genuinely believe it will come in 2022. And Carlos he had a spell where he had a couple of difficult races, but being back, finishing in top four in Spain, and then finishing on podium in Monaco, at least I'll give him some confidence going into Azerbaijan. But yeah, not a bad weekend at all for Carlos Sainz. So, putting the car on the front row, and then on race day, I thought he drove a very solid race. Just as I mentioned, a little frustrated, no doubt, that he wasn't able to get by Checo Perez in the closing stages of the race. But still, a lot of positives that Carlos can take from the weekend, and yeah, really not a bad weekend at all for Carlos Sainz. So yeah, mixed weekend in the end, or mixed bag of results at Ferrari in the end. But we have to also say massive congratulations to Sergio Perez, his third win in Formula One. No doubt this winning in Mexico Monaco will no doubt be one of the Checo's highlights in Formula One, one of his best wins in Formula One. And now he's become the most successful Mexican driver in Formula One history. So yeah, hats off to Checo Perez. And when you consider the pressure that he was under, particularly in those closing stages, um, he could so easily have cracked under the pressure, but he didn't, and he did an absolutely fantastic job. We know how good he is when it comes to time management, but to actually pull off what he did, um, albeit yes, it is Monaco and it is difficult to get by, but still the job that he was able to do um, was outstanding. And people say that Checo isn't really in contention for the drivers' championship. He only finds himself 15 points behind his teammate in the Drivers' Championship. And I'm going to put a poll out when this preview does go out. Review. I can't get my words out. This review goes out. But after the result in Monaco, is Sergio Perez a contender for the Drivers' Championship? For me, yes. You've got. He's got to be. When you consider the strong start he's had to this year, um, yeah, for me, you have to consider him as a contender for the Drivers' Championship. There's still a very long way to go this season, and for sure, Checo, there will be times where he will have some bad results, but at this moment in time, you have to say that he is definitely a contender for 2022 Drivers' Crown. And he's driving really well. His qualifying has been much improved this year, and he just seems to be enjoying his driving this year, but particularly this second season. I think he's adapted well to the Red Bull car, and he just continues to do a great job. And it was a weekend as well where you feel that Sergio was able to get the better of Max this weekend. He just seemed to have a bit more of a rhythm. Yes, he did have that spin at the end of Q3 on Saturday, but other than that, did he make many other mistakes? Not really, not any major mistakes. But yeah, fantastic weekend for Sergio Perez, and obviously now going to Baku, and Perez, we know how good he is in Azerbaijan, so he'll definitely be fired up. And say, for instance, if Checo did win, if he did in Azerbaijan, and results went his way, he could end up leaving Baku leading the Drivers' Championship. And that would be something. So, yeah, be interesting to see how that next Grand Prix pans out. But yeah, really happy for Sergio Perez. I think a lot of people in the paddock would have been happy to see Sergio win in Monaco. And for me, as I say, I'm happy that he won in Monaco. But Max Verstappen didn't quite have the rhythm. Just wasn't quite able to get into a rhythm this week. And it was a weekend where really he was, I wouldn't say totally dominated, but a weekend where he was beaten by Sergio Perez. I think fair and square. But yeah, I think Max Verstappen's just one of those weekends where he was a bit off colour. But even then, he still finished on the podium, finished third. So it wasn't all too bad for the Dutchman in the end. And yeah, in the end, whilst it might have been not the best of Saturdays, turned out to be a decent race day for Red Bull, and they seem to have pulled off their strategy. So yeah, a 1-3 for Red Bull, and really can't have any arguments with that, especially after qualifying on the second row on Saturday. So coming on to then talk about George Russell, Mercedes. Just continued his fine form, doesn't he, George Russell? The only driver to finish in the top six in all the races this year, and yeah, another race, another weekend where George beats his more illustrious teammate in Lewis Hamilton. So George has done a great job this year. He really has, and yeah, I don't think Mercedes were able to show. It was always, I think, a difficult weekend for Mercedes to show their true potential. But the signs are, I feel like they are improving. Monaco is always going to be a difficult track for them to show their improvements. But yeah, Mercedes are definitely on the right path now to improvement, and yeah, George is just continuing to do a fine job, and yeah, really happy to see George finish in top five. For Lewis, a difficult qualifying session, and also a difficult race as well for seven-time world champion. Wasn't able to get by Fernando in the closing stages. Any other track, Lewis would have got by. I've got no doubts about that. But yeah, so a bit of a frustrating weekend for Lewis. And but yeah, George just continues to drive the wheels off that Mercedes. And another driver who drove the wheels off his car this weekend, considering that he's still not 100%, is Lando Norris. Really good job in qualifying to put the car in the top six. And whilst he may have lost out in the race to George Russell, Lando still did a fine job. And if I remember correctly, I think Lando actually ended up not too far behind George when they crossed the finishing line on race day. So yeah, another fine drive from Lando Norris. Yeah, he just continues to do a great job for McLaren. I think when you consider how poor McLaren were in the first race, considering what they've been able to achieve since then for Lando anyway, um, yeah, he's done a great job and fully deserved to finish where he did on race day. But it was another difficult weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. Failed to make it out of Q2 in qualifying, and then wasn't really able to make the inroads that he would have liked to be in amongst the contention to finish in the points. Yeah, another difficult weekend for Daniel. Question marks, no doubt, are going to be raised over his future at the team. So Daniel really needs to have a strong weekend in Azerbaijan and needs to just get a run together now of points finishes, because if he carries on struggling the way that he is right now, then McLaren will be considering their options. But I really hope Daniel can bounce back, because we know how good a driver he is. He's a race winner for a reason. And yeah, ever since he left Red Bull, it just hasn't quite worked out in terms of where he would have wanted to have been. But as I say, if Daniel can bounce back in Azerbaijan, and if he can then begin to get a good point scoring rhythm together, get on the same levels as Lando, then yeah, Daniel will definitely he will definitely fight back. And yeah, it's just a shame. It's just sad to see Daniel struggling the way that he is right now. But I'm really hoping, as I say, fingers crossed, that he can bounce back as soon as possible. It was a good weekend for Fernando Alonso. Being able to get into the top 10 in qualifying, and then really, yeah, just being able to stay there during the race, and they was able to keep Lewis Hamilton behind in the closing stage. I think he also recorded a fastest lap at some point during the closing stage of the race as well. So yeah, solid weekend for Fernando. You could argue much needed points for him, for the team as well. And yeah, a good, not a bad weekend at all for Fernando Alonso. And a couple of other drivers who had decent weekends as well. Valtteri Bottas, so okay, he didn't make it into Q3 this time round, but he was able to make the strategy work. In the end, okay, he was able to benefit from Esteban Ocon's 5-second penalty causing collision with Lewis. But you got to be in that position to pounce on those situations, and Valtteri was, so good couple of points for him, for Alfa Romeo as well. But also a point for Sebastian Vettel and Aston Martin as well. So it's good to see Sebastian do well. Obviously, Aston Martin want to be higher up, but the fact that they are starting to score points, they go into a track that I feel that obviously brings happy memories for Aston Martin. Sebastian finishing on the podium there last time out, last year. Can they do it again? At this moment in time, you'd say no, but with the drama that Azerbaijan creates, you just never know. So Aston Martin, I'm sure, will fancy the chance of scoring some points. I'm sure in Baku, and Azerbaijan. So yeah, a really good point for Sebastian Vettel. The fact that he was able to make it into Q3 as well, I thought he did a good job in being able to achieve that as well. And yeah, good point in the end for Sebastian Vettel and also Aston Martin as well. But we also have to say as well, obviously during the race we saw Mick Schumacher have his crash. First and foremost, Mick, thankfully Mick was able to get out of the car. But yeah, it just shows you how dangerous Formula One can be, particularly around the streets of Monaco. But yeah, thankfully Mick was okay. Difficult weekend for Haas actually. So both Kevin and also Mick retiring from the race, and yeah, difficult weekend for Haas, but I've got no doubt that they will bounce back soon. So that's the end of my review of the Monaco Grand Prix. And if you want to talk all things Formula One, I'm on Twitter at Baggies20 and also Instagram Manish Patel 89. Catch up with you all soon, and yeah, take care.